in fact, not new for us. He has been with us in the past also, and his introduction is so wide that I have decided today to allocate the time for introduction for the lecture purpose only. So we are going to tell you that he is a very person in his field. Today, when I requested him to speak on a very important theme, so he was very much enthusiastic. When I told him that research scholars these days are caged, in fact, because of the pandemic, they are not going anywhere. So I share his views about the publication and the research methodology. That is very important thing, because research scholars these days are doing a wonderful job, and some international input is given to them, it will definitely change their version. So you all understand that the main aim of research is to find out truth which is hidden and which has not been discovered as yet. Though each research study has its own specific purpose, we may think of research objectives as falling into a number of groupings, and the aim of each research is to find out something new, whether it is the exploratory research, it is descriptive research, it is diagnostic research, or hypothesis-based research. The emphasis is always based on to find something new. Something new means that you are going to address some projects in such a way that these are reflecting the expectations and aspirations of your research topic. And of course, publication is a very important theme. Publication is a very important area which is ignored initially by research scholars, because sometimes I feel that they are not able to concentrate in the initial stages of their research about the publications, and when they realize later that it is mandatory on their part, so at that time it becomes very late. With this purpose, that we are going to let you understand the importance of publications and importance of research methodology. Professor Mamoon Habib is with us. Professor Mamoon, I just want to stop here because there are many things to be covered by you. Now over to Dr. Niyar. And I welcome you in this session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for the welcome. Now I request Dean Faculty of Commerce, Professor Imran Saleem Saab, to give his initial remarks in order to formally begin the session.
Good morning, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. And at the outset, I would love to welcome Mamoon Habib Saab for sparing his valuable time to help our students to understand and have an insight into the research issues. I also thank the chairman, Nawab Saab, for all his initiatives across the board in the department, which he keeps on trying off and on. I'm really thankful from the core of my heart that my class fellow, my colleague, my honorable chairman is really trying to contribute to the department with the best possible way. Well, I strongly feel that when it comes to research, I believe that our students are reasonably serious about research. Now, I think they understand, most of them do understand the importance of publication and all those issues. But with these type of sessions, I'm pretty sure that the understanding of issues is often deepened. And we get to know what to do and what not to do. So that's particularly important. Each one of us have a learning lesson for it. Even I strongly believe that listening to Mamoon Saab will facilitate me as well. So there's no way each one of us would benefit from each of the session as long as we have the right attitude to learn. It is, see, each one of us, I believe when we have crossed to this level, you have qualified the entrance examination of the research. I believe that aptitude is there in each one of you. What really need to focus on is attitude, having the right attitude and learn the newer things from different resource persons, especially at the moment from Mamoon Habib Saab, will be the best thing that we could have done. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for raising the issue and setting the tone to start the session. Now I give the floor to Professor Mamoon Habib Saab to formally begin the session, as the scholars and other faculty members are eagerly waiting for the content. Thank you, sir.
You're most welcome. First of all, I'd like to give a special thanks to Imran Saleem sir and Nawab Ali sir. And as you know that Professor Nawab Ali Khan sir is my very good friend for a long time, and we are working together. So that's why I always prefer to contribute to something to the PhD scholars through his networking. So let us start in this session. So I'd like to share my screen. It is visible. Can you see the slide?
Yes, it is visible.
Thank you. So you know that today our Honorable Imran Saleem sir already mentioned one thing is that there is no finishing point of knowledge. We can learn until or die if you want. And as we are Muslim, we have to believe one thing is that except our prophet, and nobody is perfect. So we have to learn. And that's why when you work in the research area, I always mention this one, there is no perfection in the research. It is a continuous process, how we can improve. So if you think the quality in the research, the same thing, it is a continuous process to achieve the excellence. So today we like to get the idea of this one, as you already noticed that here most of the participants from the PhD scholars, and definitely the faculty members are there also. So I like to keep in mind that the PhD scholars are our target participant for today's session. So my discussion will be based on that one. First of all, as you know that why you have to need the research, or why you have to need the PhD program, why you have to need the PhD. You know, there is some dilemma that when you're asking the PhD students why you are doing the PhD, some of them, they said they are doing the PhD for the faculty member position. They're doing the PhD for the promotional purpose. So why you have to do the publication? They're doing the publication for promotion, for the honorarium, something like that. But I always mention one thing is that please, you should not do the research for the promotional purpose. You should not do the PhD for the publication purpose, or you should not do the PhD for the higher ranking. You have to do the research, you have to do the PhD for the betterment of others, betterment of the society. When you are doing the research, your ultimate target, our ultimate target, how we can contribute to the society, how we can add the values to the society. So that's why we have to change our mindset at first. Our PhD, our research for the betterment of the society. And you know that nowadays, I would say that situation changing. Suppose 20 years before, the people, when they're thinking for the PhD or they're thinking for the research, and nowadays changing. Because nowadays we understood is a competitive advantage. We have to think the global arena, global platform. So when you see that the PhD holder from the National University of Singapore or PhD holders from the United States of America, so then we have to compare that our PhD graduates, our PhD scholars standard. So first of all, we are doing the PhD for contributing to the society. You just remember one thing is that nowadays there's another trend is coming, and we have to also check this issue, how we can incorporate the industry in the PhD research works. So even your PhD research topics or project will be based on the industry. Even you can solve the real case application, real case problem. So I suggest that I believe that Professor Nawab Ali Khan sir is a very dynamic person. He knows this one. So that is another avenue for future. Maybe the next 10 years you can see how we can add our PhD innovation, PhD research findings for the pattern of the industry. And it would be create the one kind of academic industry collaboration as well. And did you notice another one thing is that nowadays we are a little bit crazy for the QS ranking, Times Higher Education ranking, other ranking. So about 30 years before, we could not think too much about this one. So when you said that NIT Kharagpur, I still recall that when I was in the US, I noticed that there are lots of people from India. They're coming from the NIT Kharagpur, NIT Chennai, something like that. So, but that time we could not think too much about the ranking. But nowadays we are thinking about this kind of philosophy, QS ranking, Times Education ranking, AD Scientific Index ranking, even the Indian UGC, they have also their own ranking. So we have to also think about this one, that how we can improve our university in terms of ranking. So in the ranking, publication is a fact. In the ranking, PhD scholar is a fact. So that is another issue we have to think. So I like to clarify this one, that we have to need the research for our survival issue, for our university dignity, for our PhD scholars. We need this one, how we can contribute to the society, how we can contribute to the industry. Now come to the main point, is that how we can get the idea in the research. I'm starting in this way, that explore the idea. Because when you supervise a PhD student, we notice this issue, that students, they couldn't get the idea where they can do the research. So our first discussion is that how we can get the idea, explore the new idea. In order to get the new idea, the first platform is a Google. Google is the first platform where you can search something. You know that but today I did not say anything about myself, right? Do you know why? And nowadays it is not necessary to say something. Suppose today I like to know about the Professor Nawali Khan sir. No need to ask him, no need to ask him the profile. We can explore his profile from the Google. So just write down the name, say Professor Bahauddin. Suppose you just write down the Professor Bahauddin and you just mention the university name, and you'll get all information. So Google is the avenue where you can get the all kind of information very easily. So a few minutes before I share with you that there's a Dr. Bain is here from the UAE. He is a renowned professor in the supply chain management area. So suppose when I know his name from a PhD scholar, what I did, I just write down his name in the Google and explore him, finish. His biography, I got it. So that is the avenue, that how you can get a new idea. So now come to the point, in the research, how can you apply this Google? In the research, you can apply the, suppose you're thinking your topic, say, green HRM, green human resource management. So you just write down the Google the relevant topics on the green HRM or green human resource management. Try to get something. It is the first starting point. And we use the term that Google is that the source of knowledge. You just remember, it is the way that how you can start the something. And if you ask me, the term research means search, again search, again search. And how you can do this searching. If you ask this question 30 years before, then the professors will say, you should go to the library and you have to spend the whole day and night in the library. You have to explore the books, book chapter, journal, conference from there. But if you ask this question nowadays, any professor, then they'll say, okay, library is the one option, but you have the other option as well. What is that? Online option, online searching option. You know that Harvard University, if you think that Harvard University, Stanford University in USA, they have a provision that the scholars, they can stay at night in the library. So what is the meaning? That not that you can do the sleeping, so you can search and you can take close your eyes, take a nap for the 2 hours, and again you can get up, again you can search. It was the earlier tradition. Nowadays, we said it's okay. If you have no time to go to the library, at least you can try to get something with online searching. This is the second option, the Google Scholar Academic Edu Research Gate. What is said here, I suggest you personally, those are the PhD scholars and faculty members, that at least you have to open the account in the Google Scholar Academic Edu and Research Gate. The first three is the mandatory, is the basic. You have to open your account there. And you know that this is the Google Scholar Academic Edu Research Gate is a academic platform, research platform. Say we are familiar with the Facebook, right? The Facebook is the place you can get all kind of people, maybe educated people, non-educated people as well. But this kind of site like a Google Scholar, Academic Edu Research Gate, it is that official platform for the researcher. So university professors, those are doing the research, academicians, they have account there, so they can interact there. So you can just search any topics, or you can search the expert's name, you can find out from there. And if you have a publication, the Scopus Index, or if you have a publication of Web of Science Index, then you have an account on the researcher ID, Scopus ID, ORCID ID, and so on. So you can also explore the papers from there. You can do some networking there. But first is a basic. I suggest to my PhD scholars, you have to open the account, Google Scholar, Academic Degree Research Gate, and spend some time there. So whether you are spending some time in the Facebook, instead of that, you have to come and spend some time there. You can get some interaction with the professors, with the academicians. Online database. The next option. I believe the university, university should have some online database platform. Like lots of online database platforms are available: Emerald, LCBS, ProQuest, EBSCO, Post, Web of Science, and so on. And we suggest that at least all online database you have to use. You have to check with your university which online database you have, and at least one online database you have to use. I think you know that online database means is one kind of storage, right? So you can get the journal paper, books, book chapter, conference paper. So what I said earlier, why you have to go to the library physically? You have the if you have the user and password, and if you can get the enter in the online database, that's enough. You can get the lots of papers, you can get the idea or something. So you need this one user and password. You can collect from this one from the library. The next one is that open access. You know that I believe that when you search in the Google, sometimes you can download, sometimes you cannot download. You know that you are facing this problem. So when you search anything from the Google, if it is possible to download, you are very happy. If it is not possible to download, you're not happy. So open access is the access that where you can download without any cost. So if you're searching anything in the Google, if anybody asks you that you have to purchase this mattress by the $200 or $100, you know that our culture, like our subcontinent culture, India, Bangladesh culture, is that you do not want to pay something to for downloading. So we like to looking for the free. So I suggest you that if any site they're asking for the payment or something, that is the traditional access, the conventional access, like Amazon, like the McGraw-Hill, the Pearson, something like that. So you have to purchase. On the other hand, there is another body, we call it the open access. And you know, it's very interesting thing is that there is an open access. It is one kind of movement. Open access started their journey in 2004, and Intech is the leading open access in the world. Intech is the leading open access in the world. So you can note it down, Intech. And I like to request that you can spend some time on the Intech after my session today. So if you go to the Intech, you can see lots of journal, lots of books, and lots of book chapter. So you can choose your area. So which area you like to work on that. And so your specialization areas, e-marketing. So you just write down e-marketing, you can get the publication based on the e-marketing from there at free of cost. It is very interesting thing is that, Intech started the journey 2004. Initially, it was not accepted. Initially, it was not accepted, and then it was the one kind of movement, particularly the librarians. They do not like the Intech. They don't like the open access at all. And then 2009, Intech was indexed in the Scopus at first, and then 2010, it was indexed in the Web of Science. So nowadays, when you talk about open access, Intech is not a problem at all, because it's already get the accepted level in the indexing area. So I suggest you that when you're the PhD scholars, you have to spend some time on the open access. So you just write down the Google, that open access publisher, you'll get the lots of publisher. Intech is the leading open access in the world. So spend time on the open access publisher. And now, the first of all, you got the idea how you can explore. So I give you the few phenomena. I said that for the Google, I said that online searching, Google Scholar, Editorial, ResearchGate. I said the online database. I said the open access. I like to request spend some time on this way that how you can search the publication. Now, you have the publication. So from the publication, from the journal, from the book chapter, how you can get the new idea. So your next target, how you can get the new idea. So I suggest you say you have the 20 papers or the 50 papers, and each paper length is suppose the 10 pages or 12 pages, 50 pages. I suggest you that it is not the necessary for you to review the whole paper. Suppose no need to read that 10 pages, 12 pages. So what you can do, first of all, you can review the abstract. Review the abstract. If it is understandable, then you can go to the conclusion. I can repeat. So you have to review the abstract first, then you can go to the conclusion. In the conclusion part, you can check whether they have findings or not, whether they have any kind of recommendation or not. Their recommendation would be the starting point of your research. Whether they have any kind of limitation or not. Their limitation is the one kind of starting point of your research. Whether they are mentioning anything implication or not. If they suppose they have their own model, they are trying to focus on how this model will be applicable. Whether they are trying to mention any kind of future works. So if they mention any kind of future work or further study, that is the starting point of your research. So what I say, you have to review the existing papers and check whether they have the findings, recommendation, limitation, implication for the study. So you can start from there. If you get this kind of a few phenomena, that is a good paper for you, supporting paper for you. Then you can go to the introduction, then you can go to the literature review and so on. I suggest you that during the first screening or first review the paper, do not read the statistical analysis part. Try to avoid the statistical analysis part. Because you know that if you review the statistical analysis part at the initial level, maybe you'll be confused. So there are lots of statistical analysis part like the Excel, SPSS, or maybe the structural allocation modeling like AMOS, Listrel, or PL, something like that. So we suggest you that it is be better if you review the statistical analysis part later on, not the initial screening. When you do the statistical analysis, that time you can review the statistical analysis part. So it is a new idea how you can access the new idea from the paper. Review the abstract, then conclusion, try to explore what is your target to reach. So I believe now you have some idea. You know that there are different types of research. I don't want to talk too much because I believe you are familiar with this one. There is a different types of research like exploratory research, descriptive research, causal research, and the basic research and applied research, qualitative quantitative research. So I don't want to talk about this one, the types of research. I believe yes, you are familiar with this one. And now come to our publication. You know, sometimes this is the very important question that you couldn't get the idea how you can write the publication. Okay, we always recommended everyone that, particularly those are the faculty members, that you have to invite your students from the classroom for the publication. Suppose in the semester they have a semester project. If they are doing any kind of semester project based on the real case application or maybe the based on the company, so check their semester project. If it is a good, if it is acknowledgeable, so you can ask them, you can invite them to write the publication. Or maybe you can communicate with the alumni. Those are working in India. Suppose one alumni, he is working in the Tata. You have another alumni, she is working in the Reliance. So you can invite them to share their opinion, to share their experience. So what they have learned from the university, that is the theoretical knowledge. And what they are getting now is the real case application, and this is the practical knowledge. So let's see whether is there any gap between the theoretical knowledge and the practical knowledge. Based on that, you can publish the publication. So that is the way that how you can get the idea to publish the paper. So there are various types of publication, conference paper, journal paper, book chapter, and book. And I suggest to you that those are the very new in the publication. You can start from the conference paper. It's easy to write. Then when you have at least the 2 or 3 papers, then you have to go to the journal paper. And I suggest you that this is very important, the time frame, how long it will take. So you have to check if the new in the publication, I suggest you that you have to go for the faster publication. If you are the more matured in the publication, you have lots of publication, you should go for the quality publication, particularly the Scopus Index, Web of Science Index publication, so on, so on, so on. Sometimes it happens that in the Web of Science publication, it will take more than 1 year. So there are some people, they don't want to wait more than 1 year. So it is very interesting thing is that you have to come to the decision that whether in the earliest publication or it will take time, no problem. So let us start in this way, conference paper at first, then you can think the journal paper, then you can go to the next level. I personally request the faculty members, particularly the associate professor, professor level, you have to think for the book chapter, editorial book, or solo through book. So that is a more mature work, so that it will be alive in the research area for a long time. Okay, so let us start our main discussion for today. What is our editorial perspective? I'd like to discuss our outline of research publication. So I'm talking about this important part. I'd like to request everyone, if possible, you have to give you full concentration. And you know that nowadays in the online session, you always mention it would be the best if you could turn on your camera. So when you keep your camera on, you'll be highly motivated. If his camera is off, sometimes human nature, you are different, absent mind, you are the dilemma. And not only that, I always request everyone that when your camera is on, it is on kind of motivation for the speaker. So when I am delivering the lecture, I was thinking my audiences are there, but always my eyes goes to the only one camera, that is the Professor Muhammad Cancer camera. But I'd like to request the others, if possible, at least you should turn on the camera. It's a motivation for everyone. Yesterday morning, I had one lecture in the CILT, the Chartered Logistics and Transport Institution, yesterday morning. And then last evening, I had a lecture in the another research publication issues. So I always mention everyone that if possible, turn on the camera. So it's a motivation for everyone. Okay. Let us start very important part. I like to request everyone, particularly the PhD scholar, keep your concentration there. And if you have any question, you can note it down, and then I'll invite you to ask me question. First of all, the construct of the publication. You have to think the title will be there, abstract must be there, and then section 1 introduction, then literature review, then methodology, then model development, and then presentation of data analysis, discussion, and then conclusion, and so on. First of all, I just remind you one issue is that it is the one kind of more or less structure. Okay? It is not that necessarily you have to fulfill the 100%, but you can get some idea of this one. But it is not that necessary you have to mention section 1, section 2. You just mention 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no problem. Say if you have a model, if you have a conceptual model, say if you have the conceptual model, then this section is very important. Section 4. Model development, 3 development. If you have a model, if you don't have the conceptual model, then this section isn't required. No need. So it depends on you whether you have a model or not. Then you have to, this section will be available or not. And then maybe you are doing the survey. So you have the 300 respondents or 400 respondents. If you have the 300 or 400 respondents, then data analysis is very important. If you have a 300, 400 respondents, that data analysis is very important. If you have 300, 400 respondents, survey. But if you don't have the survey, you are preparing the paper based on the literature review. So you are planning, you like to do the research on the green HRM, human resource management, literature review. Green HRM, a literature review. So you are just collecting the 20 papers or maybe the 25 papers, and then based on that, you are preparing the literature. So that means there is no survey. As there is no survey, there is no data analysis. As there is no survey, that means there is no data analysis part. So just you can mention literature review. In that case, in that section, no need to mention data analysis, you can mention discussion only. So you can decide whether you have a model or not, number one. You have to decide whether you have a survey or not, whether there is a literature review or not. So based on that, you have to design your outline. And so let us start one by one. So again, I remind you, it is not necessary to fulfill 100%, but if you apply, that's fine. So let us start by the title. The title of paper. I use the term the publication. I did not mention directly conference paper or journal paper. More or less same. The outline will be almost same. So first of all, a title. Your title should be the professional scientific academic language. Professional scientific academic language. Well, now you can ask me, what is the meaning by the academic language or professional language? Say, I use the term abstract. What is meaning by the abstract? Abstract means summary, right? But I did not say summary. It is the academic term, research term. I said the conceptual model. Model means figure, right? I did not say figure, I say conceptual model. So it's a research term. So we said that you have to use the academic language, scientific term, so that it will be the more good sound. Say you can use the term empirical study, like exploratory study, embedding, investigating, and the studying, analyzing, determining, something like that. This kind of term is scientific term, scientific word. So it's easy to understand the paper title. I suggest you can do one thing. You can check the different conference proceedings. They have lots of titles. You can check the different journal archives. They have lots of titles of the previous papers. You can check. And I suggest you, if possible, you can do one thing. It will be helpful for you. Say how you can design the title. Say there is a three scholars, three researchers. Suppose Dr. Ben, and then say suppose Mr. Abdul Rahman, and then Mohammad Shamim. 3 persons. So the is a lead by the Dr. Ben. So at first, Dr. Ben will propose a few titles, 3, 4 titles. Okay, propose, and then it will be the best. You should rethink with your co-authors. What I said, the 3 authors. Dr. Ben is the lead, leading this project, and Abdul Rahman and Mohammad Shamim was there. So then you have to rethink with the title. Suppose at first you have to choose the 1, 2, 3, 4 title. Then you have to think. And then finally, I always mention one thing, you have to do the brainstorm. Particularly, you have to invite your co-author to clarify, to explain whether they agree or not. It is the way that how we come to title. And I suggest you do not come up with the title in the first day. In the first day, at first you have to propose a few titles, and then you have to do the rethink and brainstorm, and maybe you can come up with the final decision after the end of the whole paper writing. So that means you have to wait for a few days. In the meantime, you have to rethink and do the brainstorm. When you finish your paper construction, then you can understand how you are constructing this paper. So based on that, you have to design. No, this title is not sufficient. So what I said, that think, rethink, brainstorm. And I suggest you that do not write the organization name or country name or state name in the paper title. Sometimes it happens anywhere in the world. So suppose some people they're using the state name or country name. So you just mention a case study on Kerala, India. I understood this is based on Kerala, but question is that when you are sending the paper to the for the review process, suppose as you know that I'm involved with the editorial board member as editor-in-chief in the different international journals for a long time. So what is my experience? I'd like to share with you. When I'm sending the review, we are using a blind review. Means we delete the author name, author affiliation, but title we cannot delete. So title must be there. So we are sending this paper with the title to the reviewers. So what happens? We notice that sometimes there are some reviewers. Reviewers also the human, right? And you cannot ignore the human nature. And all over the world, the human are the same nature. Whatever the US people, whatever the Australian people, whatever the Canadian people, whatever the Asian people, the same nature. All people, they do not follow the ethical point of view. So suppose I like to share with you, as you're the PhD scholar, you can understand. So I sent the one paper, and that paper, the author, she mentioned the state name. Okay, so I understood which country. So when I sent in the paper, one reviewer from the USA, another reviewer from the UK, and another reviewer from Japan, from Asia, 3 reviewers. And what happened, I like to share with you, the US reviewer, he rejected the paper. And he mentions a few grounds, which perspective he rejected the paper. Okay, that's fine. And UK reviewer, he accepted with the major correction. And then Asian one, the Japan reviewer, he accepted the paper with the minor correction. So now you understand, minor correction, major correction, rejected. And 3 dimension. and I'm the editor-in-chief, so I should take the decision. And went through the full paper. I don't know. There is a well-written structure. It's okay. We can provide lots of comments, no problem. Even you can say the major correction or major modification is okay, but we cannot reject the paper. So finally, the paper was accepted with the corrections. My question is that why the US reviewer reject the paper? So it means that you can come to the one decision that do not think that if your paper is rejected, it means that your paper is of good quality. I can repeat, if your paper is rejected, it means that the reviewer, he or she does not like your paper. You got my point? So come to the point. And anywhere, if you notice the paper is rejected, I suggest the all PhD scholars do not demotivate it. It is on kind of motivation part. So you have to go for the next level. And you know that I always mention everywhere in the world, the color issue is there, religious issue is there, and that you cannot change it. So you can try your level best. You can say that we are civilized, but when I mix the people, you know that I have experience to work in the US, I have access to a different country. I notice this one. It is available everywhere. So we cannot change it. So that's why when your paper is rejected, you have to check the reviewer comments carefully. Do not ignore them, but do not think is a motivation factor. If his paper accepted, so excited, paper is rejected, so demotivate not it. Cool, think, and maybe you can submit the paper in another way. Okay. Okay, so it is better to avoid the state name, country names, because sometimes the reviewer they are checking this one. Oh, it's from the Malaysia. It's not a good paper. Oh, this paper from the India. No, it's not a good paper. So this kind of mindset some human they have. So it's better try to avoid the country name from the title. You can mention the country name inside the paper. You can write the country name or state name inside the paper, no problem, but not the title. It's my observation, what I noticed. Go to the next one, abstract. So you know that though you're writing the paper, but you know that the culture, that abstract will be written at last. You can see the abstract at first, but you cannot write the abstract first. You should write the abstract at the last. So I'll talk about the abstract at the last. So keep in mind that I am coming back and discuss about the abstract at the last. Introduction. Basically, I mentioned a few subsections here: rational, research objective, significance, scope, structure. So what I said here that no need to define the subsection. Rational, research objective, significance, no need to define the subsection. You just write the paragraph. And I suggest you that when you choose any kind of conference paper or any kind of journal paper, first of all, you have to check that template. That template, is there any page limitation? Is there any words limitation they have or not? Based on that, you have to prepare the paper. Okay. So what I said that you have to do the first paragraph is the rational, then it will be the objective, and you can mention that you have to use the scientific term like analyze, explore, investigate, illustrate, demonstrate, something like that. Do not write the very easy term. You have to use a scientific term. And then you can mention that one paragraph significance of the study. You can mention the significance of the study, particularly the topics is very important. You have to mention the topics. You can count the significance from the based on the topics or based on the title. Okay. And the scope. In order to write the scope, you just remember one thing is that you have to think the limitation. In order to come to the scope, you have to think at first the limitation. If you know the limitation, you can define the scope. So you have to think the limitation of the paper. Say, suppose what I said earlier, you are working in the based on the Kerala, so you don't want to state it's a limitation. So your working belongs to the India region. Though you mentioned Kerala, but it belongs to the India region. So you have to suppose you are using the SPSS software. You can mention this is the one kind of limitation that if you do better if you apply the structural modeling. Say you are taking that 100 respondents. It is one limitation. It is highly suggested to if anybody take the more number of respondents. So you can understand the limitation, and from there you can think of the scope. And then last paragraph, we can write down the structure of the paper. Next sections, how did you produce? say suppose the next subsection, next section will be methodology, then data analysis or model development and conclusion. So structure of the paper. And as you, the PhD scholars, I'm just remind you one thing is that these 4 things are correlated. I think you know that statement of problems, research question, objectives, and hypothesis. These 4 are correlated. I can repeat. Statement of problems, where you can write down the research gap. So this one, then research question, then objectives, then hypothesis. These 4 are correlated. So when you write the PhD thesis, you have to write the 4 part. But when you write the paper, like conference paper or journal paper, it is not that necessary that you have to write the statement of problem, research question, objective, hypothesis, no need. It depends on the size of the, that's why I say that you have to check the template first. How many words, how many pages. Based on the limitation, page limitation, you have to decide that how many sections, subsection you can provide. But I personally recommend you, at least you have to mention the objective. If you like to add the another one, you can say the statement of problem or research gap. It depends on you how you can write down this one. But do not explain in details. It's been brief. 1 paragraph is enough. So that is a part of the introduction. Okay. So to the next one, literature review. Today I'll discuss about the very important discussion in the literature review, how you can construct the literature review. And what I'll give you the tips. If you apply this one, that is the best literature review, no doubt. If it is not possible, no problem. But it is your target to get. Okay. So let's see. Literature review, you can define this way: theory, related review literature, and previous study. Okay. So if you construct this way, is the best. Okay. Theory, related review literature, and previous study. Okay. Now you can see the pyramid triangle. I draw the triangle. So the theory, it will be the number 3. So sorry, is the opposite direction. Related review literature 2, and previous study is 1. Okay. So your literature review is like that. So you have to start from the broad perspective, theory. Then you have to narrow down related review literature, then previous study. So what I said, theory, related review literature, and previous study. Again, I remind you, if you could design in this way, that's excellent. If not possible, it's okay, it's acceptable. Okay, now let's see how you can design. I can give you one example. You see here, say you like to do the research on supply chain management in the hospital. So hospital supply chain management. I believe you have as you are the student of the Saleem University Department of Commerce, so you have an idea about the supply chain management. So in the supply chain management, how you start? Your target point, supply chain management in the hospital supply chain management. So the first one, theory. This theory should belongs to the definition of supply chain management, theory of supply chain management, concept of supply chain management, broader perspective. Theory, definition, concept of supply chain management. Then the second part is the related review literature. Related review literature. So I say our target point is the hospital. Hospital is representing service industry. Right? Now, come to the point. So you have to check whether you have any paper, supply chain management in the service industry. Supply chain management in the service industry. Now you can check service industry means you can check suppose the banking industry supply chain management, tourism supply chain management, or educational supply chain management, something like that. So that would be like that. Services supply chain management. Then come to the last one, number 1, previous study. You can search whether is there any direct paper on the hospital supply chain management. Check it. And after the reviewing, you can check that you have 2 papers. One paper, supply chain management in the private hospital in the South Africa. You got the one paper. Another paper you got supply chain management in the public hospital in the Chennai, India. So you got the 2 papers. Supply chain management in the private hospital in the South Africa, and the supply chain management in the public hospital in the Chennai. Both are the case study. One for the public hospital, another private hospital. One for the South Africa, another for the China, India. This is the previous study. Now you can ask me, Professor, if everything is there, then what is my job? Why I have to work? Because already the hospital supply chain manager is available. Yes, see, where you have to add the value. To target this point, vertex. So you see, you started theory, related review literature, and previous study. Now you target the vertex. So what we have to do, you have to design hospital supply chain management that could be in general, so that any hospital, or whatever the public hospital or private hospital, they can apply, whatever the country, maybe the India, maybe the any other country, maybe the African or Poland, any country they can apply. So you understand, your research should not be belongs to any type of hospital. It's a common in general. Your model should not be belongs to any country. It should be the in general, so that any country they can apply. You know that when you construct the literature review, you just remember one thing. You like to show that why you like to do this research. Say, I assume that, these are one examples. I assume that, suppose our bandana, right? You're the bandana, right? So she has no idea about the supply chain management. She is reviewing this literature. Let's see what is this. Oh, supply chain management definition concept. She got the idea. She was thinking, oh, it is possible to apply supply service industry. Yes. They mentioned, oh, hospital supply chain management. Okay, that's fine. Then what is the reason? This reason, what they're doing? Then you can understand the difference. They are doing the supply chain management hospital for the public hospital or private hospital, or whatever the South Africa or the India. But this research, the unique research, in general research, they are producing the model, whatever the any hospital, whatever any country they can apply. So when you're designing the literature review, your main target, you have to express the significance of your study. So that's why you are construct the literature review in this way. Start the broad perspective, make them more narrow down, and come to the more specific what you have to do. And now come to the point. What I said, it is very difficult to organize. It is a target to reach, but it's difficult to organize. And not only that, the interesting thing is that, you know, that if you start in this way, there is a possibility that similarity index will be very high. Similarity index will be very high. You know the plagiarism issue, right? So when you copy and paste from somewhere, and then if you mention the same way, there is a possibility of similarity index. And now there are lots of software, Turnitin software, Identity software. If you use a software, we can find out the similarity index. So now if you ask me the range of similarity index, for any conference level, we can accept 35 to 40%. There is some question like self-citation issues and other issues. But in the journal, we are accepting 20 to 30%, including the self-citation. And if it is a PhD dissertation, we assume the 20%, about 20%. So as less as you can manage is the best. Okay. So now come to the question is that if you notice that if you check the similarity index is very high, how you can reduce the similarity index? The next question. You have to what I noticed that most of the cases, literature review similarity is very high. So you can do one thing. First of all, you can check the, at first you copy and paste, right? You copy and paste it. Then check the word, change the word. So you can use the synonyms. Synonyms, you know the synonyms, right? And the thesaurus. Check the thesaurus. You can check use the thesaurus. So rewording, change the word. Second one, you can do one thing. Suppose you are copy and paste from somewhere, then you can change the tense, like present tense to past tense. You can change the voice, active voice to passive voice. Okay. So this is a basic something. You have to change the word, synonyms, thesaurus you can apply. And finally, if possible, you can do the rewrite the whole paragraph. Rewrite the whole paragraph. We call it paraphrasing. We call it the paraphrasing. Okay. So you have to read the whole paragraph and write in your own word. But what is my understanding is that it is not very easy. to write the whole paragraph is a very easy job. So I suggest you that you have to spend more time on that. But at least you have to do that one. Rewording by pseudonym, thesaurus, change the tense, change the voice is a basic something you have to do. So I suggest you that you can apply so that you can reduce the similitude index, and you target with the around 20% similitude index. Okay. So this is the way how you can construct literature review, and it's the best literature review in the world. The next one, now we are in the methodology part. And in the methodology part, basically you have to mention what type of study you are doing, like exploratory study, descriptive study, or causal study, quality quantitative research. You have to mention. You have to mention what the primary data, secondary data. You have to mention clearly if it is the primary data, the survey, how you are doing the survey. You have to mention something like that. And basically, you have to mention the hypothesis. And you know that I already mentioned earlier. The statement of problem, research question, objective hypothesis, they are correlated. Basically, a hypothesis will come from the research question. And there are two types of hypothesis, null hypothesis, alternate hypothesis. Under the two-tailed test, one-tailed test, two-tailed test. So you have to find out in this way how you can write the hypothesis. And then if you have a model, in the model there will be some few variables, and then you have to define the variables, whether dependent or independent variables, whether you have to mention that the operational component questionnaire, or the 5-point Likert scale, sympathy scale you have to mention, as well as you have to mention the measurement scale. And then you have to do the sample size determination. You have to determine the sample size. How you can determine the sample size? So there are 3 techniques. One is the formula, and the table, and the reference. Any one technique you can apply, but you have to justify which technique you are applying. And if you ask me the sampling procedures, I will say that there are 2 sampling procedures. One is the probability sampling and the non-probability sampling. You know that in order to define the probability non-probability sampling, you have to think whether populations are known and unknown population. If it is a known population, then probability sampling. If it is the unknown populations, then non-probability sampling. So this is the first question will be there, whether the populations are known and unknown. So I suggest you that I believe you have an idea, so try to understand. If the known population, then probability sampling. If it is the unknown population, then non-probability sampling. And under the probability sampling, there are a few categories. Under the non-probability sampling, there are a few categories. And based on the categories, you have to choose which sampling procedures you have to apply. And what I said that that you have to choose the sample size based on the few techniques. Table is one technique. This is a very popular technique all over the world. And though I know that Indian students particularly, they do not like this table. They prefer the formula because they love the mathematics rather than this one. But I noticed that the Malaysian student, particularly the Indonesian, Singaporean student, Philippine student, and this Asian country, they prefer this table. It's very easy. So you can check if possible, you can also apply, then how you can choose the number of respondents. You see in this table, say your population size is 10,000. Non-population, 10,000. If you use a 3% range of error, then you need like 1,000 number of respondents. And if it is a 5%, then 385, and 7%, 200, and 10% 99 respondent. So say you are taking the 100 respondent, then how you can explain? You can mention, if you use the Tarun table, if you use the 10% range of error, then we need the 99 respondents. So that's why you are taking the 100 respondents. Here, the possibility is that, what is a good intention is that all kind of classification, all kind of clarifications here. You are taking that 99 or 200 or the 400 or 1,000, you can get the reply. So you can use this table. It's very popular table all over the world. Tarun table. You can try, you can apply. And I don't want to talk about the sampling procedures anymore. You can check this one. And I only mentioned data collection. You have to mention whether the primary data, secondary data you have to mention. Now, next section, model development. In the model development, before that, Professor Nawab Ali Khan, I can get another 10 to 15 minutes.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. By 150, you take your own time. After that, we'll spend some time for discussion because research scholars have a lot of queries for you.
Yeah, that's no problem. Thank you. So you see, model development, I would suggest the one thing is that as you are doing most of them PhD scholars, during the PhD time, if possible, you can make a plan that you have designed the model. So conceptual model design. And you know that how you can determine the quality of the PhD? By your model development. So you can finish your PhD without the model development. You can, no problem. But if you have a model, that your PhD will be the more high quality PhD work. And the interesting thing is that say if you have a model, then you can provide the recommendation. You can provide the recommendation. If you have a model, you can provide the recommendation for the industry. So model, based on the model, you can do lots of things for future. And did you notice some of the PhD scholars, after finishing their PhD, they are getting the offer to write the book. They're getting the offer to write the journal paper. They're getting the offer to submit the journal paper, conference paper based on the PhD work due to the model development. So I suggest you, if possible, the PhD scholar, should think how you can design the model, design conceptual model in a PhD time. And you could be live in the world, the research world for a long time. Next, at least 20 years, you should be live there. And you know that I always mention one thing is that if you look very carefully, USA, most of the PhD, they are always trying to develop a new model, new concept, new theory. And you know, the interesting thing is that most of them, those PhD, those in USA, most of the students are from India. So when Indian students, they are doing the PhD in the USA, they are doing that kind of PhD research, high quality research. Unfortunately, when they are doing the research in their own country, at that time they don't want to do this kind of lever, this kind of innovation. So I suggest you, I believe you have that kind of capability. How you can produce the model in the PhD, you have to think from now. Because if you start to think after the 2 years, yes, not possible. You have to start to think initial level. So when you plan to develop the model, then how you can start? You have to start from the theoretical framework. Theoretical framework means previous works. I suggest you have to check the previous works. And not only that, you have to check the previous models with their limitation. Previous works with their limitation. Okay. Say, do you remember just few minutes before I mentioned one example, the hospital supply chain management. That time I said, we got the two previous studies. One is that private hospital in the South Africa. Another is the public hospital in the Chennai, India. So now you can ask me, what is the limitation of these two works? The main limitation is that both of the case study. South Africa, another is that India. Number two, one for the private hospital, another public hospital is also limitation. So when you design your own model, you have to remember the previous models, their limitation. Based on them, you have to produce a new model. So that is called the conceptual model. Okay. I'd like to give another example here. So for your better understanding, I am writing in the chat box so that you can see this one. You can see this one. This is the one model, ITESCM model. I've written in the chat box, ITESCM model, Integrated Tertiary Educational Supply Chain Management Model. This is one model name. So this is the supply chain management model for the tertiary education institutions. ITESCM stands for Integrated Tertiary Educational Supply Chain Management Model. If you're interested more, I suggest you can go to the Google and you can get the more publication based on this model. And now this is the model for the supply chain management model for the tertiary education institutions. So I designed this model during my PhD time. It was 2009. And now interesting thing is that when I designed this model, I used the two previous model as a reference, as theoretical frameworks. So that means when I designed this model, it is a conceptual model, and it comes from the two previous theoretical models. Okay. Now, after developing my model in PhD time, then there are a few PhD research started based on this model. One of my PhD scholar, he finished his PhD in 2018, Dr. Basu, and he's a Malay Indian. And interesting is that what he did, he used this model, ITESCM model, as a theoretical model, theoretical framework, and then he applied the
a sustainability concept. Sustainability concept upon this model. So his PhD research work is like that. Sustainable education supply chain management model for the Malaysian universities. So look very carefully. He used this model, theoretical model, and now he like to have the new model. And I again remind you, when I designed this model, that is a conceptual model, and I designed this model based on another 2 theoretical models. So that is a way that how you can design the model. And now you can say, no, this is the first time I'm designing this model. Nobody did any research earlier. Then lots of questions will be there. In the PhD level, you cannot prove this one. If you say this model comes from my brain, and then the examiner will say that I do not want to listen to this one. I like to see the proof. Can you show me any work, anything belongs to this research? At least somehow you have to show the previous works. That is a continuation of the research works. So what I said that this is a way to develop the theoretical model to conceptual model, and then you can modify edited version, revised version. It's okay, no problem. But you have to start. So we always mention that PhD level conceptual model design is one of the critical issue. Then go to the next one, data analysis part. I don't want to talk too much about the data analysis part. Basically, here you have to mention the different statistical tools like Excel, SPSS, structured equation modeling. Under the structural modeling, there are the few tools like MOS, Listrel, PLS, and so on. You have to mention that pretest, and then you have to mention full circle questionnaire. And then there are 2 types of analysis. Basically, one is the descriptive analysis, another is the inferential analysis. And the descriptive analysis, you have to mention frequency, percentage, arithmetic, you mean a standard deviation. And inferential analysis, basically, you have to mention about the null hypothesis, alternate hypothesis, and other something. And basically, this is a part of the structural equation modeling. I don't want to talk too much because, basically, you can deal with another 2-hour lecture on the structural equation modeling. So this is a long discussion, but I believe that as you are doing the PhD, you have to need the knowledge on that one. In future, if Dr. Professor Novel can organize any kind of session, we can do this one, no problem. We're in the conclusion part. Do you recall that when you show the outline, the research publication that we mentioned, this one, that the conclusion, you have to mention summary of findings. Basically, here you have to mention that the main summary of your findings in terms of hypothesis, what is the outcomes, and you should not use any kind of statistical language. You have to use the academic language. So, as you know that what is the meaning of statistical language? If you say in this way, that Mr. X has a good relation to Mr. Y at 0.001 significant level two-tailed test, you can understand if you have expertise on the statistics, but somebody can understand. So we said that we try to avoid this kind of statistical language. We prefer to use the academic language. You just mentioned Mr. X has a good relation with Mr. Y, finish. Because the people, audiences, they will review your abstract. From the abstract, they will try to get something from there. So that's why it should be the academic language. And if you have any kind of specific recommendation, suggestion, you can mention. If you have any kind of limitation, based on the limitation, you have to mention the further study. So the further study will come from the limitation. And so you can mention the further study. And finally, in the conclusion part, you have to mention the contribution. Dear PhD scholars, I like to give a pause at this stage. It is the most important question during the PhD dissertation defense. When you go for the defense, you just remember it's very important. You know that as I'm involved with the PhD supervision, I'm involved with the PhD dissertation review, different country, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, other country. And easily every month, I'm receiving at least one PhD dissertation from India. You see now, beside me, there is the one PhD dissertation. I received the 1 week before from the one university from India. So sometimes I'm also serving as a PhD extra examiner in your university, due to the reference to the Professor Novelist, sir. So what I said that we are always checking this one. Whether you say what is the contribution of the PhD research. So keep in mind, you can express your contribution by 3 ways. Any one way you can mention. First of all, you can mention that directly, is there any contribution to the society? Do you remember when I started that today lecture, I said, why you are doing the research, contribute to the society. Say you are doing the research on the green HRM, green. You know why you using green? Green means that it is directly contribute to the environment. Environment contribution is directly contribute to the society. Look, you are doing the research on the population. If you do the research for the population, directly contribute to the society. Okay, you develop the one model. And now you are suggested this model will be applicable for the industry. So it is the industry contribution. You develop the one model, now you like to request that this model will be applicable for the industry, corporate level. So it is industry contribution. It is a contribution to the corporate level. And third one, you are doing the own research, you have no contribution to the society, no contribution to the industry, then how you can explain? That time you have to mention contribution to the academics, contribution to the research. So the prospective researcher, they can get the help from there. So what is that? Say, I just give you one example. You are doing the research, what I said earlier, green supply chain management. Green supply chain management, a literature review. So now I'm asking, I'm the external examiner. I'm asking, hey, what is the contribution of your PhD research? Or what is the contribution of your paper? You write the one paper, just journal paper. What is the contribution? You have to write contribution. So what is that? You can write in this way. These study based on the secondary data. Though it is the limitation, however, this study would unlock further frontiers for the prospective researchers in this area. You got my point? I can repeat. Say you, what is the green supply chain management, literature review. You are just submit the one paper in the journal. So what is the contribution of your research? So you can think this study based on the second data is a limitation. Though it is a limitation, however, this study would unlock the further frontier for the prospective researchers to pursue the future research in this area. So this is a contribution for the prospective researcher. This is a contribution for the academics. So what I said, at least one way you have to explain your contribution. And that is the most important part in any paper when you write. When you see that as an editorial board member or the reviewer, you like to see the conclusion, whether you can say their contribution or not. If you notice you mention the contribution, then you say, oh, it's okay, we should accept. Because it is our ultimate target to notice. So this is a part of the contribution, this is a part of your conclusion part. Your references, I think I don't want to talk too much about the references. There are lots of reference style, APS style, number reference style, Harvard style, Vancouver style. I suggest the best option is that you can check any conference paper, journal paper, what is their template, which reference style they're using. And there is the interesting thing is that as you're very young and dynamic, there is lots of software, you know, that Android software and other software you can apply. But I always mention one thing is that I still prefer that manual referencing, analog referencing. Then you can actually understand the from where you are writing, collecting information. Because I noticed the sometimes students, they use the software, even they didn't check. Even it's not available there. So I like to request at least, okay, you can use the software, no problem. You can use any kind of Android process and others, but you have to check manually, okay? And when you use the reference, you first start with the book chapter, then journal, then conference paper. And we suggest that we discourage to use the website address. We discourage to use the website address, but if you use the website address, no problem. In that case, you have to mention date of browsing. Date of browsing, which date did you browse? Because it's sometimes a dynamic page. And we strongly recommend not to use the Wikipedia and others. This is not the authenticate at all. So make sure that when you use a reference, from where you have to start. Now, back to our abstract. Do you recall the abstract? What I said, this is a starting point. So now I mentioned earlier that I've discussed in the last level. You know, I always mention one thing is that abstract is the glamour of the paper. The glamour of the paper. You know that all humans, they love to show their glamours. Whatever the man, whatever the woman. Now, this is the abstract is the glamour of your own paper. So you have to show your glamour. Now you can ask me, so how you can show the glamour? You can show the glamour, you can show the glamour in the different way. Look very carefully. You have to mention some basic something. First of all, you have to use the professional language, academic language. As a professional academic language should be there. Very brief. You have to check the template, whether the 200, 100, 300, based on that you have to prepare. Rational, very in brief, only one sentence. And you objective, you have to mention the main objective and use the scientific term, what I said earlier. Make sure that one brief term say many things, like conceptual model. And we understood you design the conceptual model. You mentioned that this study based on literature, we understood what you did. So you have to think that what kind of term you can apply. What type of study you have to mention whether descriptive study, explorative study, causal research, something like that. Quality, quantitative research you have to mention. What type of data you are using, like primary data, second data, you have to mention. Clearly you have to mention, but again in brief, not in details. And sample, if the number respond more than 200, 300, 400, as you know, the 400 in the PhD level, 400 plus respondents, the more suitable. If you use this level number of respondents, then no questions. But if your number is 100, I suggest do not write in the abstract. And sampling procedures, you have to mention whether probably sampling, non-probably sampling. Clearly, you have to mention. Okay. And statistical tools, which technique you are using, you have to mention. I suggest that you have to mention the technique. So, structural equation model technique. It is better, do not write the software name in the abstract. You can use the software name in the insight. Because if you directly use the software name in the abstract, there's some question why you are using this one. You're one of the target when you write the paper for the journal conference, reduce the reviewer comments. If you say something, if you mention we are using the 75 respondent, the question will be that why you are taking 75 respondent? Are you sure 75 respondent are sufficient to come on the decision? But if your number is 375, then no question will be there. So that's why I say that what you have to write in the abstract, you have to think twice. Findings of the study, you have to mention clearly learning outcomes. Very important part. You have to mention the findings of the study, main findings. Do not write many things. Novelty is the contribution of the research. You have to measure clearly the contribution of your research. Again, I remember your contribution would be the three ways: either society or corporate level, industry level, or the academics or the research level. And finally, you have to mention the keywords. You have to choose a few keywords, which is very commonly used in your paper. And don't forget that this keyword is very important for the prospective researchers. They will use this keyword to explore your paper. So you have to understand that what you can use and what you can apply in the abstract. So if you could design the abstract in this way, inshallah, your paper will accept it. But you have to remember the most important few is something that you have to clarify the all issues, but in brief, within the limitation of the abstract wording. Okay. That's all at this stage, outline research project. I just remind you again that what is said here, look very carefully. It is not necessary to cover everything. But if you could cover, that's best. So it is ultimate target point. And unfortunately, today we will not cover this part, but it is another important part. I believe that it is the academic writing part. So basically, we assume this is a more mature work. Academic writing, how you can use the academic writing. As you know that I always mention Indian people, their English is excellent. There is excellent English if you compare the other countries in the world. But the question is, academic writing is different. You say, hey guys, you can use the guys. This is not the academic term. It's a verbal English. If you talk with the British people, if you talk with the US people, you say their English very good. But when you come to the writing English is different. So you have to ensure this. An academic writing is consists of the few something like the complex. The sentence you should connect it. You can use the term the including, particularly, however, moreover, furthermore, although, how you can connect. So this is a very interesting thing. There is a few characteristics we have to follow in academic writing. Unfortunately, I will not discuss today. I will not take more time because I would like to invite for the Q&A. So maybe in future, inshallah, if you get the chance, we discuss about this issue. So now I like to invite Professor Nawali. Please go for the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Professor Mamoon Habib. In fact, I cannot, I don't, I'm short of words to express my feelings, because when I see the zeal of our attendees, you see, which is constant today, and I appreciate the efforts of all, today, when I look at them, I'm so happy that from the beginning until the end, all of them are present in your session. I think there's some magical performance given by you. So I appreciate, I give you congratulations for this wonderful performance. And in the meanwhile, I welcome Professor Badiuddin Sahab, who is with us today. He is the Dean and the Head of the Department of Management, Maulana Azad National Open University. Sir, welcome to you. I forgot to welcome you in the beginning. Dear students, before we go to the next part, before we go to the concluding part, I just want to say a few words about the researches and the nature of work you are doing here. And what I feel, because normally we meet in bios examination and we don't get time for this all. So what, after listening to Professor Mamoon, some insights came to my mind also. These were regarding writing the PhD and publication at the same time. You see, 2 for 1. If this is the approach, I tell you, why not write thesis so that possible articles are simultaneously being written? What I'm observing is students write thesis first. In the first 2 years, they are silent. In the third year, they wake up and they start writing their thesis. In the fourth year, they complete everything. And when it comes to writing research paper, they think of it just at the end. This is actually not a kind of advice that you can take from us. Our advice is to carry on your research in such a way that your possible research papers are simultaneously being written along with the thesis. And one more thing is here, that is regarding the structure of this thesis. Whenever a thesis is submitted in our department, I just go through the contents. And what I find that there are some variations. I want that the structure the possible structure of the thesis should be such that it is a kind of symmetric for all. Some people write 5 chapters, some write 6 chapters, some write 7 chapters, some 8 chapters. What I want, your entire thesis should be in 3 parts. Professor Mamoon has already given you a good idea about the flow of work. But what I want, your first chapter should be introductory chapter. It should be always an overview where you can show the aim, importance, background, critical literature review. Some students are writing a separate literature review also, but in our time we used to write literature review as a part of the first chapter itself. So you can write critical literature review, and you can argue about the research questions and end up this with the upcoming structure of the thesis matching the research questions. Then your chapter 2 to chapter 5. Chapter 2 to 5 should be about this. This is the series of the chapters should be in such a way that from each chapter number 2, 3, 4, and 5, you are able to write a possible research paper. And you can decide the title of the paper out of these all, because title cannot be the same. So from chapter number 2, 3, 4, and 5, you can write compulsorily 4 papers. And you can decide the topic, decide the nomenclature of the paper, and it should be sequence. There should be sequence order of the study. Your research that should be in such a way that you are able to arrive at the research questions. And of course, your final chapter should be oral discussion and conclusion, and how oral results are going to answer to your questions. There should be some linkage between these. What are the oral results mean? What is explanation? What is conceptual development that you have made? And the implication of the theory, and also the limitations and the future research and practical applications, as Professor Mamoon has pointed out. So then in that case, you will find that you don't need to write 2 things separately, research paper separately and thesis separately. You will write your research thesis along with your research papers. And one thing that I want to tell you, that research scholars, while writing their thesis, they write their research papers on some other themes, which are not going to serve the purpose. So you are going to hit 2 birds with 1 stone, that you are writing research paper that is going to form part of your thesis. And it is not different. Your research paper and your thesis should not be, your chapters on which you are designing the paper should not be different from each other. Really, it should form part of each other, should be complementary to each other. That's what my finding is. My finding about your research is when I see is, So I hope you understand this point. And I will request Professor Mamoon to spare some more time sometimes later to just guide you the way you have to present your work. Okay. So this was a brief note from me, which I hope you all can follow in writing your thesis. And now, Dr. Saim, please capture the frames before we take over house to the question answer session. Now look
Okay,
at the
sir.
picture.
Okay, sir. Just a second.
Everyone is requested to switch on their videos.
Vandana and Afsha are from the beginning on the screen, so they should not be left uncaptured.
Please switch
Mohammed
on your
Arwa,
camera
Afrin.
quickly. Switch on your cameras.
Have more to come. Huzaifa, Arshad Hassan.
So, Mamun, today
A lot of them
showed,
they are still.
Followed your instructions, and many of them were with video on through the session.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to request you next time you can organize the one session for the directly by the title with the PhD, how they write the PhD dissertation or PhD proposal, something like that, and PhD presentation as well.
Sure.
The presentation
Sure.
directly the PhD related. Today is the publication related, but it will be more fruitful. And what you said, Dr. Nawali sir, I like to share with you. It is our own kind of culture in the subcontinent. Our students, they are thinking at first the PhD, then they think the starting the publication, end of the PhD. But when I see the even the Singapore, Malaysia, even in the USA, the student they're starting thinking the publication, undergraduate, master's level, PhD, they're in the boldly they started writing the publication.
Right.
Chapter 1 finish, one paper. Chapter 2 leadership finish, another paper. But their way and our approach is different. But I believe we have to change what you said. Absolutely right. You're very lucky as dear scholars that Monopoly studies mentioned correctly. And that is the way how we can improve. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good comments you mentioned.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Dr. Saim, please capture the screen.
Sir, they are not here actually. Very few have
Okay,
opened up their.
Maybe they are not ready because these days they are in idle form, so they are not dressing properly. So whatever the look you have, please come forward.
Please,
Nobody is going to watch you because we will.
Please switch on your cameras quickly.
आप लोग जिस हाल में है उस हाल में आ जाइए, जल्दी से डिस्प्ले करिए अपने आप को. We are not going to give the
Switch on your cameras.
Out of this, but be fast, please.
Exactly.
Dr. Ben, are you there? If you were there, can if possible turn on the camera for a while? They're taking the picture.
Dr. Nair, Nair kahan hai? He should be on.
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yes,
Nair
sir,
is
I am
there.
here.
Very good. Zafar, very good. Maria, Baduddin Saab, sir. Professor Baduddin Saab, very good.
He's there. He's there.
He's there, perfectly fine. Very good. Aqsa, Fahad, very good. Very good. Fantastic. सब लोग बहुत अच्छी तरह से तैयार होकर आ गए हैं. Dr. Saim, you don't delay. Start capturing the screens now.
Okay, sir. So I think it's not visible on my display. मुझे बहुत कम लोग दिखाई दे रहे हैं.
मेरे पास तो सारे दिखाई दे रहे हैं. Dr. Nair,
सर वंदना रुखसार मारिया, तो सर आप दिख रहे हैं, जफर आलम और नैयर.
मुझे सब दिख रहा है. मैंने जिनके नाम लिए आपके सामने, मारिया, जफर आलम, नैयर रहमान, रुखसार, and Saim, Badi Saab, Wasi, Amir Hassan, and Fahad, Aqsa, Huzaifa, Arshad, Shahzeb, Haris, Rizwan, all of them are visible.
सभी हैं डॉक्टर साहब, सभी हैं अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, सभी हैं.
Yes.
Dr. Nair,
Yes, sir.
you capture please. Dr. Sam, maybe
Okay, just a bit.
technical issue.
And you can share the picture with me, please.
Yes, of course. It will be a national news, sir.
Oh,
whatever the
that's
programs
great.
are there, whatever the programs we have, we make it as national news.
Oh, please.
Second frame. Okay. Got it. Then third frame.
ये खाने के बाद
Sir, I have taken whatever were available.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all. Now a few minutes with Professor Mamoon for your queries. I start with Vandana first. Vandana has attended your lecture, sir, very sincerely. So I start with her. Let other can come forward with their queries.
Please.
First of all, good afternoon, sir. And I don't have any query, but I'm really happy that this is a session I was waiting for so long. And I have little resentment too that why it took so long. But yes, it's gonna helpful a lot, sir.
Thank you. But you have to give the special thanks to Professor Novali, sir, because he organized this one. If he doesn't allow, then how he can organize? So you have to push, sir, again to organize the similar type of program. Okay, I like to contribute there, inshallah.
Afsha, would you like to say anything? Unmute, please, unmute.
I would like to ask, sir.
Asha, we cannot hear you. Can you check your microphone?
So, am I audible, sir? I would like to ask one question, sir.
Wait, one by one.
Yes, Professor Sami.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I would like to thank for enlightening us with your research-based knowledge of wisdom. But one question is, most of the research scholars, even faculty members, nowadays have too much competition to gain number of citation. And it depends upon whether your paper is accepted. No doubt, Scopus or Springer and renowned journals. But when it comes to citation, then it is open access where we have to pay. And if it is not open access, then it is very difficult to get number of citations. So is there any secret like to get our paper published into open access and without spending too much money, because such kind of funding is not given to us?
Thank you so much. I always mention one thing is that in the research, there is no perfection. In the research, there is no conclusion, no concluding remarks. It is a continuous journey. We have to check, trial and error. You said a very good point today that, that suppose I like to share with you, I have publication in the traditional access. Okay, I have publication in the IGA Global, I have published Springer, all are the traditional access, means somebody should purchase, university should subscribe the Web of Science Index or the Scopus Index. So it is not possible everywhere in the world. Again, I have publication with the open access, like the INTAC. I have the lots of publication in INTAC, and which is open access. And interesting thing is that just check the review what I said. I published the one book chapter, Supply Chain Management Theory and Evolution, is 2010, hopefully 2010 or 11 in INTAC. It was open access. That time it was not the Scopus indexed, that one. And then later on it was the Scopus index and Web of Science index. Now it's both index, but it's open access. And advantage is that that chapter was downloaded 22,000 times. The people, they're using this book chapter as a citation. You just think. Unfortunately, even my publication, the Springer, it will not be cited like that. It will not be downloaded like that. So that's why sometimes you say this one, that when you're a researcher, we have to think the both. You are looking for the high citation as a researcher, right? So you should think about open access. Yeah, definitely this kind of work like Springer, this kind of the Springer Nature, Web of Science, it's also sometimes the promotional purpose, other purpose we have to need. But we should not depend too much this kind of indexing. We should think about the at least the high, we call it the term the high impact journal paper, high impact. So when talking about the high impact, that time they should be open access. So we should think of both. But again, I remind you, there is no conclusion remarks. So you have to understand now how we can proceed.
But simultaneously, there are many frauds. Like sometimes they post they are a Scopus Index journal and they ask for money. When you give money, then after 1 month, it disappears, that it is not
I know. You know, I always mention one thing. This kind of match everywhere in the world, and if you ask who is leading this kind of initiative, most of them Chinese, or most of them our subcontinent people. I don't want to mention. So this is some people, they are abusing our authentication. They're abusing our morality. So we should not think about this one. This is the worst part. We have to justify by us, we have to clarify by us, then we have to do. We should not depend on this. Somebody, they said it's a good journal, they're asking you the $2,000. If you submit $2,000, you paper within 1 month. Don't go this kind of thing. Why you are looking for the 1 month publication? Public, even the normal peer-reviewed journal, which is a new journal, it will take 4 to 6 months. If peer-reviewed the normal journal, just started 1 year, 2 years, they have the ISSN number. You have to check. You know, I always mention one thing. You have to do this one. When you go for any journal, check who is the editor-in-chief. You can explore his profile. Who is the editor board member? Explore his profile. You know that editor board member, editor-in-chief, they cannot do this kind of job. Publisher, they can do. So when you say, you just notice that Professor Badiuddin Ahmed name is there. You can search his profile. Oh, professor. You know that he cannot do this kind of thing. Publisher, they can do. So you are trying to see their profile at first. Editor-in-chief, editor board member. When you think there's some authentication, then you can submit. But again, I request you, do not believe. You know, if you say the impact factor 8.6, 20.6, cool. How come? How is it possible? When they said that if you submit the paper, the journal paper will be published within the 1 month, within the 48 hours, something wrong. You shouldn't go home. Nothing cheap, nothing shortcut in the research. Nothing shortcut, nothing cheap in the research. Research is a continuous process, it's a long journey. It will give you the patience. And did you notice those are the good researchers? They are doing this for a long time. They're always the very calm, quiet, silent. The reason is that they have a lots of patience. They submit their paper earlier stage, their paper was rejected, they notice, they have to control themselves. So this is a way that how we can go to the improvement in the research. Okay. Thank you. Afsa Sharfaz, can you talk now?
Oh, am I audible?
Yeah, please.
Good afternoon, sir. So thank you so much for this informative session. It was very helpful and thought-provoking for all of us. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Next one, please. The 2 person raised their hand. Mohammed Abdullah.
Hello, sir.
Abdullah, if you are raising hand, you want to ask.
I have a query. Generally, in a market, or you can say in this field, few people are of the opinion that when you are done with your research paper, you have to submit the paper to one particular journal, and then when it's rejected from that journal, then apply for the other journal or something like that. But few pupils are of the opinion that let's just send the paper to so many journals all at a time, and I think you know what I mean, sir. So
yeah, I understood.
the ethical way is to give the paper to one journal at first instance.
Thank you. It's a very good question. You know, I'm so always happy to work my subcontinent people, like Bangladeshi, Indian people, or Pakistani people, and our mentality always same. How we can reach that level? Don't think that you can reach that. You'll reach the easily to come the level of the Professor Nawali Khan. It will take time. You need the patience, slowly learn, experience. So, you know what you said, I had this kind of said from even from a PhD scholar, sir, we can submit 2 or 3 hacks. And I said, it's good for you, I understood, but sometimes the question of the ethics, and when you writing the professor name with you, there is another issue with the professor. If you submit by yourself as a student, no problem. But I like to share with you because you can understand. In 2013, There is a one paper was 2012. There is one paper was submitted and accepted in one journal. I don't mention. I'm the editor-in-chief of the journal. And then the same paper was submitted in another journal in 2013. And when with that paper, good paper was accepted, and then suddenly that editor-in-chief of the journal, he sent me email. The professor, we got the plagiarism issue, and we got the 100% similarity index. 100% similarity index, and now what is your decision? And unfortunately, the problem was that he sent me email, it's okay, but he's keeping the CC of the University Grants Commission of the Pakistan. And then there is another professor. I was surprised why he is so crazy. And then I explored that the student is okay. He's a faculty member, assistant professor, with the PhD. He's doing the PhD, but his supervisor is the professor, and he is again one of the, what do you call it, the listed person for the UGC. So there is an internal conflict. So that's why when you submit any paper, you just remember professor name is there. You have to be careful. Consult with him at first, because whatever you do, it will also belongs to him. So make sure this one. I personally request you that make sure the ethical issues is better to maintain. And if you are the very new in the journal, I suggest do not go Scopus in the journal. Do not go Web of Science in the journal. Go to the easy journal, peer-reviewed journal, so that you can get the publication within 4 to 6 months. When you have a 1 or 2 publication, then you have to go to that level. At that time that you have already few publication, now you're thinking the Web of Science or the Scopus, there's no point, it will take time. But initial level, if you're planning to submit the one paper in the Q1 journal, Q1 journal, it will take more than 1 year, you are waiting, and after the 1 year, you're getting the rejection, then it's not the fair. So you have to go that level slowly. Thank you. Mohammad Sharfraz Khan.
Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
I'm Dr. Shahfaraz from University of Technology and Applied Sciences, Oman, and a small alumni of this department of commerce. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Dr. Nawawali Khan, and other my friends. Just a question, sir. I just need to know, say, as per the requirement nowadays, as per the requirement, we need to publish an impact factor, and so many things are there. And it is taking too much time, sometimes a year or more than a year, to get it accepted only. So is there any way out to get rid of these problems? Because we are facing it, and everybody in this field now, because they are normally privatized these academics, and after spending so much money also, we are not get the results properly. So is there any way out?
Thank you so much, Dr. Shafraz. I can share with you something so that you can understand. Yes, it's a tough time, it's a critical time, it's a long time, long journey, but it's a possible, we can expedite the process. You cannot skip the process, but we can expedite the process. That if you have the communication with the directly editor board member or editor-in-chief or managing editor, so they will not give the waiver of the any kind of process, but they can expedite the process. I can share with you, as you are you're my colleague, so I can share with you. I'm involved with a few journals, so when I notice that sometimes they submit the paper and the regular queue, it will take the 6 month, 8 month, or 1 year, just for review process. So even you ask me, request me if he is or she is familiar with me, and then I can at least try to expedite the process, maybe reduce another 2 or 3 months, something like that. So that is the way, one way. And another way, I suggest you should not go to that kind of journal all the time. And that's why I always ask you, before submit the paper, you have to ask the journal directly that what is the duration of the review process. So because nowadays we are doing one thing, that is initial screening. Initial screening, we can reject some paper. That is a good. So initial screening within 1 to 2 months, you can at least get the idea that whether the paper will go for the review process or not. So maybe after the review process, the paper will be rejected, maybe, but there's the possibility 50-50 that if our paper will be accepted, maybe the major correction. So, but without the initial screening, if you are waiting for the long term, that's a good approach. So I suggest you, before submit the paper, you have to check the journal quality at first. And if possible, send the email directly to the editor-in-chief or editor board member so that you can get the real information from them rather than publisher. Because you understand, publishing the money concern, money issues, other issues, so they have to maintain this one. So you have to communicate with them. So that is the one way you can expedite the process. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the insight. And one small question, one more question, sir. Nowadays, it has been seen that some scholars or some researchers particularly have more than 20, 25 papers in a year. So I just need to know, is that possible ethically?
Possible. Say, it is not your own paper. It is not your own paper. It's like that. Suppose, say, Professor Novel Khan, sir. He has a supposed, say, 10 PhD scholars. These scholars, they are trying to publish the 1 or 2 papers. And he is a master's level student, MPhil student. He has the colleagues. So in that case, you can see their name their name should not come at first. Their name should come with the second or the third or the last author. When you supervise the student, that our name will be the last. But if you see the any author, his name is the first name, the 20 papers in the 1 year, something wrong.
Exactly, sir. That is my question. That some scholars, some researchers having 20, 25 papers in a year with high impact factor journals.
If the first author, then something wrong.
No, not exactly. They are having a team, I think. This is a team. But my question is whether it is ethical.
It depends whether they get the time or not. But some question will be there. Some question will be there. But if you go to the Harvard University professor, you can see their profile. They have. Because I know that I know that their culture, as I was there, they have a research wing. This is the one team, 5 PhD holders, 5 PhD students. This is the another colleagues. There are few. They are coming one by. Suppose that in the morning 9 a.m. one group, 10 a.m. another group, the 11 a.m. another group. So they are coming. They're professors are sharing their views. And you can do this one, this one, this one, and then working. That is possible. But if you think that these are like those are not the real researcher, but they have this kind of publication, there's some question will be there. Okay, thank you.
Sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I cannot open my camera. It's just a morning here.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Take your time.
Professor
thank you so much.
Mamun Habib, assalamu alaikum.
Yes, alaikum assalam, sir.
I am Wadiuddin Ahmed from Maulana Azad, as my good friend Dr. Nawab Ali Khan Sahab has introduced me. I request kindly to get you appointment for our scholars. Our university is not as old as Nawab Ali Khan Sahab. We are just in the 25th year of our university. So in your 25th year of our celebrations of our university, I would like to have you or your lecture on a similar topic, our scholars. So how can I reach you through Nawab Ali Khan Sahab or directly? If you can share your details with me, I can.
No problem. You just, I like to invite all of the PhD scholars. If you like to reach me, you just send the email. Just mention the reference of Professor Nawab Ali sir. That's enough.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
This is to show the respect to Professor Nawab Ali sir. Just reference his name. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it was a wonderful presentation from your side. Really, even I did learn certain things which I was not aware of it. To be very frankly speaking.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you. Last night I was just going through the LinkedIn. I got this and immediately I thought to join and get something advantage from this important topic on methodology, because learning is a never-ending process. So thank you so much once again for this Ali Muslim Institute Department of Commerce. Thank you, Nawab sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for being with us.
Yeah. So can you finish now, or you can take another one more question?
Sir, finish, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
So anything
Thank you, sir.
Our scholars here. Dr. Nairman, please present a vote of thanks to Professor Mamun and other attendees. Now, over to Dr. Nairman.
On behalf of the Department of Commerce, Aligarh Ministry, I present the formal vote of thanks to all the participants who attended this program and made it successful. Our keynote speaker and resource person, Professor Mohammad Mamoon Saab, his expertise in the area, his comments and experience will give a long way for this, for the students, research scholars and faculty members to focus on research publications through new vigor and better insights. I'm thankful to the Chairman, Department of Commerce, Professor Nawab Ali Khan Saab, for arranging this program, and for all other participants who does not belong to the department, and to invite them in all other future programs as well. And for that, they can join our Facebook page, LinkedIn page, so that regularly they will be getting the updates. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
I like to request everyone, if you have any further query, you can send me email by the reference of Professor Nawab Ali sir. Inshallah, you'll get the replies in 24 hours. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.